If you've ever experienced food poisoning, one thing I know for sure is that you do not want food poisoning again. It's a horrible situation. So if you're dealing with food poisoning now, we'll put a link in the description below this video for our video for quick relief from food poisoning, and you can check that out. But in this video, we're going to talk about steps you can take to prevent food poisoning from happening, and one of those steps is even inside your body. This is going to freak you out a little bit. You don't want to miss this.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
Now we'll get to that step that some of you folks are going to be able to take to sort of bulletproof your body from this whole food poisoning thing in just a minute. But first, let's talk about some steps you can take in your life to reduce the odds of having food poisoning situations. So keep in mind that I'm going to kind of remove that thing about, hey, maybe it's a good idea not to eat one of those triangle sandwiches that you find in the gas station. I mean, if you're doing that, you're really not being that reasonable, are you? It's been sitting there for months because nobody else was dumb enough to eat a triangle sandwich from the gas station. So we want to avoid those situations. But what we don't understand a lot of times is that a lot of these food poisoning situations come from just mishandling food prep situations. So a lot of times it's just the preparer that is not doing things the right way and creating a food poisoning situation. And a lot of times that can happen in a restaurant or maybe some kind of food cart in a park or something, but in most cases that food preparer is you. A large percentage of these food poisoning cases can happen in the home when we're preparing our own food. So the first thing we want to understand is that we really want to wash our produce. A lot of these vegetables and such will have fertilizers used on them where the fertilizer has fecal matter that was not purified. So we really need to wash that out because it doesn't belong in our stomach. That's not where it should be going. It should be in the ground feeding these vegetables, not feeding us. So we really want to wash our vegetables effectively. And I have this really cool little ozone spray bottle that I bought. It was a little pricey for a spray bottle, but if you understand how ozone works, it'll kill pretty much any pathogens that are on your vegetables. And you just kind of spray it off and you can consume that ozone and it's not damaging to the human body in any way. So this is a great way to really make sure your vegetables are getting clean. But the most problematic thing that we need to look at is we're looking at raw meat when we're cooking meat. This is probably the most problematic area. Most of us have enough sense not to take a raw chicken breast and lick it. We're probably not going to do that. We probably know that there's bacteria on there that we don't want going into our body. But what a lot of people don't understand is that they'll pick up this raw meat and then they'll cook it and then maybe they'll just dry their hands off on a towel and then go about preparing their other food. Well, that bacteria is still on your hands. You wouldn't lick the food, so you wouldn't want to touch it with your hand and then touch other things that are going to be eaten or other things that are going to prepare the things that you're going to eat. We really have to use some common sense to kind of follow the path of how these microorganisms get into our body. That's what they're trying to do. So don't have a goal of being a good host to these microorganisms. You don't want to be a good host. You want to keep them out. So what we want to do is after we touch raw meat, you really got to wash your hands with soap and water. So this can be really easy to do. You just think about, okay, this is the hand I'm using to pick up the meat, and I'm not going to touch other things until I wash that hand. I'm not going to touch the refrigerator handle, put all the microorganisms there, so after I wash my hands and go back in the fridge, I'm going to put them right in my mouth. It's just using a little bit of common sense. And you might think, oh, I don't want to be a germaphobe. And it's not about being a germaphobe, it's about not hurling in the toilet. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you really want to hurl in the toilet? You probably don't, so you just got to follow the pathway that these microorganisms can take to get in your system and keep it from happening. This is just basic sanitation and basic food safety principles, but in a survey they found that more than half of the people that are cooking their own food don't wash their hands after they're touching their raw meat. So this is a really big thing. The next step we want to take is to think about that pathway that that raw meat is taking. You don't want to carry raw meat out to the barbecue on a platter and then cook the meat and then take that meat and put it back on the same platter where all those microorganisms are sitting there in a bath saying, yay, hey, here comes the ride. We'll just hop on there and get right into the host now. So you got to think about what you're doing and make sure that that raw meat is not touching something that you're going to eat from, or maybe even the same utensil that you're using to put the raw meat on the barbecue. Just kind of think about that pathway and understand how those microorganisms are getting into your body, and then it's really easy to avoid those steps. And step number 4 is the biggest deal. And this is the one that we're going to handle a situation in our body, because it's really common for someone to have low stomach acid these days. Well, the stomach acid is there to help us break down our food, but guess what else it does? It's the barrier to the whole body. When these microorganisms come in on the food that we're eating, they die in an acid bath when the stomach makes enough stomach acid to fry and kill them. That's one of the jobs of the stomach acid. So if a person is taking some type of acid reducing medication, they're turning off that barrier for the whole body. There's a study, and I'm going to put a link in the description below this video, where they found that people that were on some type of acid suppressing medication, whether it was a PPI that turns off stomach acid or maybe just some kind of antacid acid neutralizing medication, those folks were 4 times more likely to experience a food poisoning situation. Not twice as likely, 4 times as likely. So this is a big hint as to why some people are more likely to get food poisoning than other folks. But keep in mind, it's also important to understand that a person can have low stomach acid even if they're not on an acid suppressing medication. There's a wide variety of reasons that a person wouldn't be making enough stomach acid, and in any case, if there's not enough acid to fry those little varmints, they're coming in and they're setting up camp. Now, you can still get food poisoning when you're making enough stomach acid if a large enough quantity of these microorganisms come in at once, but it's just a lot less likely when you can fry them in this acid bath. So what you really want to know is, do I have enough stomach acid to kill these varmints when they're coming in? Because if you don't, you can take steps to correct that function and make sure that your stomach is acidified enough to kill these guys as they come in. So what I want you to do now is jump over to our video on 10 signs of low stomach acid so you can see if maybe, do I need to check this out and see if I need to correct this problem or not. I can't wait to hear about your results.